I'm Coach Tarek.
And I'm Vanessa.
We are your movement experts, and we are here to educate health and fitness professionals with the tools to create real change for and within the industry.
Welcome back to Purpose Driven Movement Podcast. I am your host, Vanessa Leone. This week we have Australian Naturopath and sports nutritionist Kira Sutherland. She doesn't sound like an Aussie, but she's definitely been here for a little while. She has had more than 28 years in clinical practice, and she's been a winner of Integrative Medicine Awards for excellence in clinical practice for nutrition and dietetics. She divides her time between working with clients one-on-one. She lectures at undergraduate level, and she mentors practitioners in complementary medicine and also in sports nutrition. If you're curious about dabbling into naturopathy or maybe some nutrition or maybe both, this is a really, really great eye-opener episode for you. I myself have been a client, or I have gone to Kira seeking her professional knowledge for my autoimmune disease. And I can honestly say that going to see a natural practitioner, if you've never tried it before, is something that is completely life-changing, particularly when you're really looking at integrative medicine or naturopathy. Most people don't realize that there is quite a large introductory process getting to know these practitioners. So they will ask you lots and lots of questions, and we're going to go into the details of what you can expect if you're going to go and seek out a naturopath or other clinicians in that area. And I think it's such an interesting topic where natural is really, really having its moment in the light, and where we're noting that ancient wisdom that we've had for a really long time, and now Western science is catching up and noticing and figuring out why these practices and medicines have worked for thousands of years. And by no means are we telling you to throw out the science or you to throw out medicine. Kira is really in the middle of the fence there, and I think she's a great person to introduce you if you've never been a part of this field of natural, because she's not biased from one side to the other, and I really love that about her approach in what she does. But I would really love for you to make up your own mind about what you think natural is and your opinions on it for your clients and for yourself. I know myself, I found it really, really important in the way that I have gone about changing my diet and changing the supplements that I've added to my diet. So I'm really curious to see what you think about this episode.
Check out FTI's latest offer, which is 15% off of any of our online courses. Simply go to www.functionaltraininginstitute.com and input PDM15 at cart checkout.
Welcome back to Purpose Driven Movement Podcast. I'm Vanessa, your host, and I'm so happy to have my friend here with me. Her name is Kira. Welcome, Kira.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm a bit scared how excited we're going to get.
Yes. Well, look, I'm not scared about it. I'm excited. I'm just going to launch straight into questions I've got burning for you. And the first one, I think, in the introduction, I talk about you being a sports nutritionist. But I think for a lot of trainers, and maybe just for a lot of people in general, they still get really confused about what is a nutritionist and what do you do and what's a dietitian, and are you able to help us out with that?
Yeah, sure. So I am originally trained as a naturopath and as a nutritionist, not as a dietitian. So it used to be that naturopaths and nutritionists were not degree qualified. It was an advanced diploma. Now, we are talking probably before a lot of your listeners were born. They are degrees. They have been degrees for the last 20 years. Those of us who did original diplomas upgraded to degrees. So it's 3.5, 4-year degree. So maybe I'll stick to nutritionist rather than naturopath. So a nutritionist is degree qualified, very evidence-based these days, but I would say it's what we would call these days holistic nutrition. So yes, we look at macronutrients, we look at calories, but we especially look at food as medicine. And we do a lot working with people with digestive problems, be it SIBO or FODMAPs, or mind you, dietitians do that as well. But we don't work in hospitals. We don't tend to work in the general public or government sector. We tend to work in private enterprise. So most of us work for ourselves, seeing clients face to face. And we look at kind of the whole spectrum. So I guess this also includes naturopathy, because with a naturopath, same qualification, but you also study herbal medicine. Some people do more energetic, like flower essences and things like that, homeopathy. And we're really looking at the nutrition, the diet, but much more so we are trained for looking at lifestyle, looking at sleep, looking at circadian rhythms, looking at the whole mind, body, and a little bit of the emotion. We're not counselors by any means. Some practitioners do a lot of just diet and meal planning and things like that. Other practitioners, we use a lot of supplements. So we're trained heavily in micronutrient assistance. So whether it's giving magnesium or zinc, probiotics, all kinds of stuff like that. Whereas a dietitian, always degree qualified, very rigorous. I'm not a dietitian. Lots of friends that are dietitians, very rigorous science degree. And then a lot go on to do post-grad, and they see people privately, but they're the ones also working in government and looking at policy around food, as well as working in like hospitals and other institutions. And they do a lot more meal planning than us, more, like this person's had their bowel resected, what nutrients do they need? They're very heavy on the macronutrient calorie counting focus. Although the dietitians I know are looking a lot more as food as medicine as well. But yeah, and they do a million other things. So we are different, but we do the same, and we're both trying to make people healthier.
That's awesome. That's such a nice, it's not even a contrast. It's a nice explanation, because I was going to ask you about naturopathy, because I think, people, especially in our industry, will look to a nutritionist, will look to a dietitian, and we don't really have much hesitation about referring out to a dietitian or a nutritionist. But when it comes to naturopathy, I think that that's a whole nother conversation. And I think there are a lot of people who are still really hesitant about naturopathy as a remedy. So what would you say to people who don't know about it, or maybe who want to know more about it?
I love that question. I haven't asked that in ages. So naturopaths generally have almost the same volume of nutrition training as the nutritionist. I actually teach at a university where I teach in both of those degrees, and there's a crossover of a lot of the nutrition subjects. The nice thing about naturopath is that we have just this whole other suite of where to treat people from. So we do use more remedies that would be considered more energetic, like homeopathy, emotional little drop for things. Herbal medicine is our big difference. So there's herbalists and then there's naturopaths. So you can actually do a degree in herbal medicine as well. But naturopaths kind of are doing the herbal medicine and the nutrition combined. So it just gives you this other way of supporting someone. So like most people know about echinacea tea when they feel sick, or, the tablets at the pharmacy or the health food store that help with digestion. And herbal medicine is, continual medicine that's been used for humans were around. It is a lot more evidence-based these days. But the beautiful thing is herbal medicine had things that are antibacterial, antiviral, like modern medicine, sometimes not as strong, obviously. But we also have a lot of medicines that help organs function better. And that's the beauty is you don't have to be sick. You can come in and I can be like, oh, you have a skin situation, but also a digestive situation. I have herbs that it can actually help your digestive system improve, be it more hydrochloric acid, better digestive function, loosen the bowel, get the pancreas to do a better job, assist the liver in its amazing job that it already does. So herbs are just one of the best places herbs work are with hormones, both for everybody, every sex, every gender. One of the biggest uses is female hormones, or those assigned female at birth hormones, and working on periods and menstruation and menopause. And yeah, there you go. There's my naturopathy monologue.
Awesome. That's so good. I'm so glad about it. Honestly, it's definitely opened up in terms of a lot more people now, even my own clients, whereas 10, 15 years ago, they would never have seen a naturopath. And there's a lot more interest and a lot more openness to naturopathy. Having been treated by yourself, I fully appreciate the benefits that you can give to someone.
Can I add one more thing?
Oh, yeah, of course. Go.
The other area it's amazing for is stress and supporting the nervous system. And that's where in 2023, everybody has anxiety, everybody's nervous system is exhausted and shot. And we have these great herbs to help calm us down or support us, help adrenals function better, calm the nervous system. And so there's just beauty in this little assistance. And it's, for some people, it can replace, it's instead of medications. Other times it's to support people also while they do medications. Naturopaths are not anti-modern medicine. And I think people also get that wrong. We work with a lot of, we're considered allied health these days, or complementary med. And we can work with what people are on, and we're not going to tell people to come off stuff. We're just there to support.
I think that's a big one. I think there's a lot of fear that, there's this whole anti-medicine propaganda, and medicine is one of the biggest reasons why we're so much more long-lived and generally healthier and not suffering from so much disease. But there is that ancient medicine that's been there for so long. And I think that inherently we were much better at tapping into our body to see what we needed and what we felt, and living in with the seasons and all of that kind of stuff. And I think that naturopathy is so beautiful in being able to help us align with a little bit more of that intuitive, what my body needs.
Yeah. And, most of us wouldn't be alive a few times over if it wasn't for modern medicine, right? Like some of us are a little more accident prone than others or whatever. And it's amazing. So yeah, it's a myth that we're anti-medicine. We love working alongside of it. We love supporting people. And yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. That's really cool. I think one of the things that I'd love to chat to you about, I had a really great experience coming into I came into your college actually, but having the whole naturopathy and nutrition experience for me was so different than going into like a specialist or a GP, right? They're so quick, short, sharp. My experience with these kinds of professionals is they don't have a lot of empathy, and they keep it very clinical, and it's a little bit overwhelming. You kind of forget all the questions that you came in with. And sometimes it's just like you're there for such a short time. You leave with more questions than answers. And from someone who has, I suppose, opened up and developed autoimmune and all of this kind of stuff as I've gone into my life, a lot of people, a lot of women in particular, are going through these issues. So can you describe what the process is that they could expect?
Yeah. One of the beautiful things about it is that because we're complementary med or allied health, we're not under Medicare. Naturopathy is not even covered by public health funds or private health funds anymore, but it never really was. It was only like $20 or $30 that was covered, and the government took that away, or health funds. I don't even remember what happened, but you pay to see a naturopath or a nutrition, like let's stick to naturopathy. You pay to see us, like there's no rebate anymore, but you're paying to have us for a whole hour. Sometimes even practitioners do an hour and a half. And so there isn't that rush. There is this, hopefully we've got you to fill a little form out first, but we heavily go through, it's like the first time that you do meet a doctor as well. Hopefully they take a longer period, but we don't have these Medicare restrictions of time. With our amazing medicine and so much of it being public funded, there's short times. Doctors are told 15 minutes with a client, that's it. Whereas I can sit there for the hour. You can remember everything. We're going to go through your health history, family history, but we're also going to delve into what you're, heavily into what you're eating, but also your emotional, mental stress. I want to know your energy levels. I want to know how much you're sleeping, how much fluid you're having, how much you're exercising. I have the time to look at what we would call the whole person, or the holistic view of where you're at. And I shouldn't say this, I'm going to talk myself out of a job. 50%, I swear, 50% of what we do is we sit there as a great sounding board for you to talk through where you're at. Yes, we're going to work on your autoimmune or your digestion or your hormones, but you hear yourself go, oh yeah, I am really stressed because of this, or, oh, no, I haven't been sleeping enough. And yes, we're going to give you guidelines and instructions, but I think 50% of it, there's these old famous quotes from hundreds of years ago about we're kind of there as the entertainment almost while you heal yourself. Yes, we absolutely give stuff as well. So it's a long consult. It's thorough. It depends on the practitioner. I am kind of old school and I still handwrite your treatment as we sit there. Other practitioners will go away and type something out. I send handouts and lots of, You know what the biggest thing is? And I explain this because I lecture to students in their final year of their studies. You've met some of my students a few years ago. You are there to teach people how to take care of themselves. You're there to give them the guidelines of what actually is healthy living, because no one gives us that anymore, especially managing a modern world with distractions and TV and, amazing food, but terrible food. And so my job is to get rid of you in some ways. I need you to come for a couple of appointments. I need to teach you, and then you should be able to fly on your own. And I think that we're there as teachers more than anything.
That's such a nice way to look at it, because my doctor is definitely, they teach me maybe a couple of things as I've gone, but most of the time they're there as like a point of like someone that I have to go see to make sure that all my autoimmune stuff is all in order. And then they kind of then decide who else I should see on top of that, or if I need to. Yeah, they're like, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a gatekeeper. And, and they're the ones running the tests under Medicare and things like that. Like naturopaths and nutritionists, we can order tests, but you have to pay for the test yourself. More and more people are opting to do that at times because it's too hard to get into the doctor, ask for those tests, then go back to the doctor to get the answer to the test. So, but again, we're not skilled. Their skill is so phenomenal, but we are well skilled in looking at tests. And I know when I need to send somebody on. Another great way to explain it is modern medicine is incredible acute medicine. If you're in a car accident, you have to go to ER. If you have a heart attack, if you have an infection and you need antibiotics, and they're incredible diagnosticians. Whereas we are great for chronic ailments that modern medicine often can't do much with besides cortisol or cortisone and things like that. So chronic things, which often with lifestyle and diet changes can be, whether they're fixed or just slightly remediated, but alleviated. But we make people do the hard work. I'm not saying medicine doesn't do that as well, but we ask people to do, as you know, I don't ask easy stuff. I'm like, if you want to get on top of this, what you need to do. And do we expect you to do it all the time? No, but hopefully we get people to make enough changes that they feel good enough that they're like, oh yeah, that makes a difference.
Yeah, wholeheartedly. As someone who has come through the process and has seen both processes, endocrinologist and the natural side of it, I'm still going to go to my endocrinologist and check things, and I'm not going to disregard that. But the advice that you gave me, not only have I taken that, but it's also then opened up the gateway for me to then delve into it even further, to the point where I now know certain nutrients and classes of things. Like I make sure that instead of taking a supplement, I'll have 3 Brazil nuts a day because there's my daily selenium. Exactly. Those are golden nuggets for me for helping my own clients out with issues that they might be facing as well. And I think that knowing that you're going to teach is so much more important than going to just diagnose.
Yeah, that's the beauty we get within that hour. And then, or hour and a half that people take, and the handouts are like, I make people go read books, right? I'm like, go buy yourself this book. You need to look at this. And wouldn't it be amazing instead of, I'm going to show my age here. I have a 17-year-old who's about starting HSC next week. And it's like some of it's, they study amazing things in school, but sometimes I'm like, calculus or food is medicine, or how does my body work really deeply? I would so love, I'm sure we wouldn't listen in our teenage years, but would that be awesome if we had more classes like that?
I would hands down love more classes like that, body literacy or just body awareness. And you get taught sex ed terribly, but you still get taught it, right? I don't understand how sex ed became more important than body awareness.
I know. I mean, there are classes you can take. There's a class called PDHP, which, does teach you a lot, but yeah. I sat down. I may or may not have sat down with a few teenagers recently and went into the deeper questions on female bodies and how they function and what you really, they know the overarching idea, but I was like, let me teach you the nitty gritty. And they were like, oh my God, we do not know this, but also they're finally ready for it. So it's also about the person being ready. And, even naturopathy, sometimes people come and they pay and you do your consult and they go away and then they don't come back. And you're like, okay, they're either self-starters and they're off to do it, or they're not quite ready. And often I get a call 6 months later and they're like, I need to come back. I'm ready for what you said. Let's redo it. Because it takes a lot of effort to make changes in our diet and lifestyle, and sugar and alcohol. We have all of those still. I'm not making people come off those, but whether it's wheat, dairy, sugar, alcohol, sleeping 8 hours a night, not scrolling all night on your phone, all of those things are fun and yummy. So of course we do them, but it's about learning in what levels we can do them.
Yeah, I like the awareness that it could even be one of those things that as PTs or as coaches, if we're referring out to a naturopath or a nutritionist, we say, this could be a bit of an overwhelming process. You're going to get a lot of information. You might have to make quite a few changes. And we know that the coaching side of what we do is the most important. And I think that that's a really nice partnership that I'd love to see more of. Yeah, is the coach and the naturopath or the coach and the nutritionist working together in tandem to deliver these kind of meal plans or supplement plans, because I've had many a client go see a dietitian or a nutritionist, less so naturopaths, or a bit more clinical, and they'll just deliver a meal plan. And then your client's on this meal plan and they do it for 2 weeks or a month, and they might even get some results, and then all of a sudden it's off. Yeah, exactly. And they're not equipped to deal with, like, to understand that that's not a failure. It's just, well, you need to pick yourself back up. And how do you think we could go about educating people along that journey? Because I myself, as a fitness professional, was super overwhelmed when I first went to my naturopathy assessment. So what do you think we kind of need to do?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? You need to have that dialogue open with a practitioner. It's like when people go and see a PT, they're going like weekly or every 2 weeks or a couple times a week. So you have access to people on that basis, which is much more frequent, which is divine. But people can't. Going to naturopath every single week would be way too overwhelming. If you're doing weight loss with someone, sometimes you do that, get them to come every 2 weeks, or I often do once a month. Oh my God, there's different tools to hold people accountable. I have discussions with clients if we're working on something that you need. I ask clients how often they want to come, what works for them, because I also don't want to push them into too many appointments. Accountable. There's apps, there's food diaries I make them do. Basically, as a lot of coaches will say, nothing makes you want to change more than being in pain. So what is the level of pain or motivation? But people usually wait until there's a pain situation to locate that motivation. So no, I've been a practitioner for a long time, and I just don't know what it takes, really. I probably have 20 ideas of it, but yeah, we don't want to overwhelm people, but you also then don't want to give them too little, because I supervise students as they see clients, and sometimes they're like, oh, that person's really stressed. I only want to tell them to do 3 things. And I'm like, well, they're probably only going to pick 3 things, but you need to give them 7 options to pick from, right? So we do write this big list, and we don't expect you to do everything. And there is a fine line between giving people too much info and not enough. And I've probably erred on the side of both at times, but each person's different as well. And I don't know how intrinsically motivated my client is after a first visit. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. So how about then, I think I'm going to recommend it, but would you recommend that PTs or coaches, instructors just go to see a naturopath, even if it's only for that first session, second session, even if they feel like nothing is, in quotation marks, wrong with them, right?
We can find stuff. I can always find stuff to tidy up. Very rarely am I like, you know what, you're so healthy, you don't need me.
I would probably agree with you, hands down. What would you say to, I think the collaboration aspect of allied health and PT is something that we can be really tap into. So clients who want to work with a naturopath or a nutritionist, what's the best way to find them? How do we look for you?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Not always just social media. And some of the best practitioners I know have very small followings on social media because they're so busy, they're not there. That's not to say there aren't some great social media. Definitely look at people's, look and feel on socials. And if you like the message they're delivering, I would just ask friends. I really think you ask around. You ask people who they've seen, who do they recommend. You especially want to make sure you do. We're a self-regulated industry at the moment. There's discussion over whether we're about to be registered or not, but we are self-regulated, and you want to make sure that the practitioner you see is qualified. So you want to make sure they're with a governing body. There's a couple governing bodies in Australia. There's Australian Traditional Medicine Society, or better known as ATMS. There's another one called ANTA. and another one called NHAA. Those are kind of the three big ones. You want to make sure they're qualified with one of those. Because we're self-regulated, sadly, anybody could actually call themselves a nutritionist or a naturopath. So make sure they've got a qualification. I think word of mouth is actually the best. You know, yes, you can Google, but someone might be paying Google ads and not actually be a great practitioner. So I would ask around, who have your friends seen? Who do they recommend? Have a feel. Do you want a male or a female? Do you want somebody that's near the same age as you? I just had an amazing student graduate at 21 years old. She must have started at 17, and she's amazing. Whereas I have other graduates that are, you know, it's their third degree and they're graduating at 50 or 60. So you just ask around and ask around with what your problem is. People will contact me and they'll be like, this is what I have, you know, I want to book in. And I'm like, hey, I know a person that specializes in what your issue is. Let me send you to them, because that's not a lot of naturopaths are more general. And then a lot of us are niche specialty people. And so ask around for that as well. And yeah, I still think it's word of mouth. And make sure they look okay on social. I mean, some of us are terrible at socials, but check out the message being sent. And just because they're the most famous naturopaths doesn't mean a less famous one or less social media savvy isn't incredible. Actually, one of the best naturopaths I know has no website or social media. And I'm always hassling her. She's been practicing for so many, she can't be bothered. She doesn't need it.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, if people are interested in what a very, very prolific kind of specialty and degree and certification list looks like, go to Kira's website and check out yours, because
yeah, it's very specialized.
Awesome. Like there's so much there. There's such a wealth of knowledge. And there's a lot there for free that you can just jump on and have a look at it. And I think that maybe that could be a really good starting point. So then at least you're aware of some of the things that you might even be looking for if you're even unsure about where to start.
Yeah, there's a lot for free. And, you know, if you know you have a really specific problem, like if one of the listeners is like, oh, I have eczema and let's say SLE. I won't even say what it is, but the people that have it will know what it is. And they have this autoimmune connective tissue disease. You could literally Google naturopaths who specialize in this type of autoimmune, and it probably scroll down a bit. You probably will find it. But also if you contact a good naturopath and say, this is what I'm looking for as a specialty, do you know anybody? Most of us should refer you on to the right people. I am a bit of a gatekeeper. That's not saying I want hundreds of emails of people asking me where to send them, because I don't have time for that.
Easy. I like that. I want to start this naturopath PT relationship. I think it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the beautiful thing, especially with, I'm going to say COVID here, but we've been doing online consults for a long time. I've done online consults for over a decade, but it was more rare. Whereas now, since COVID, there's different regulations as well. It's like all of our doctors are now online. It's so amazing not to have to go wait in a doctor's office sometimes. I would say 98% of my clients see me via Zoom. And so it makes it possible that if you're in Sydney and the naturopath that specializes in whatever you need is actually in Noosa, that's who you can see now. And I think the consults are just as good. Every now and then I wish I could get my hands on the person and look at their fingernails or, you know, whatever. But yeah, everybody's online. So it's just, and everyone's finally streamlined. They've got their systems going, hopefully. Yeah.
Awesome. Now, I would like to go some controversial ones because, yeah, that's fine. You can say no.
Oh, do it. Unless it's a topic I don't talk on, I'll let you know. Let me qualify just for anybody listening. I had this discussion with another naturopath. We are not anti-vaccine. We get nails for, like, we legally aren't even allowed to talk about it, let alone advise on it. That's up to you and your doctors, but we are not anti. And a lot of people put us in this really anti everything establishment. And I'm just saying the majority of us are not. We don't teach that either. Yeah. I just want to qualify that. Okay, good. Go for it.
My question's much less controversial than that. So PTs love a supplement. Love a supplement.
Yes. Oh, I think I know where this is going. But anyway, go.
So what would you say are your biggest bust supplements, like for the general pop, for the general PT, may not be worth what you're looking for? And what do you think are some really great ones that could benefit kind of everyone on their health and fitness journey?
Great question. It was almost what I thought you were going to ask me. My bust supplement. Any supplement doesn't need to be taken all the time. And I think we get stuck on supplements and I meet these people that are like, yeah, I've been taking this probiotic for the last 3 years. And it's like, probiotics are amazing when we need them, but do we need to take them constantly? No, we should be eating foods that help feed our gut flora rather than always taking them. But I love them. Supplements I don't like. Cheap, nasty supplements that I think people don't digest. I am much more of a powders or a capsule girl than tablets. I do give tablets though. Don't I like?
That's really cool how you said you don't need to take them all the time. This is interesting. This is cool.
No, you don't. You take things for periods as you need it, and then you should move through that. I mean, if you're doing an enormous amount of exercise, I will probably try to support you with some magnesium, because they actually estimate 80% of the Western population is actually a little bit deficient in magnesium because it's burnt up through exercise, through stress, through coffee, through alcohol. We need it for energy production, for calming our nervous system. And that's probably my favorite supplement. Like if I could only give the world one supplement, I would probably go a great magnesium.
Maybe let's do the good supplements and then you might think of a bust one if you have one. You don't have to have one.
Oh, do you know what? I don't like fat blasting tablets unless you're actually doing a ton of exercise. Like, do they work? Do they not work? I don't want people taking them and not then doing any exercise. Those fat mobilizing tablets actually help fuel your mitochondria burn fuel, but you actually need to be doing some exercise for that. So I'm not a huge fan of those, although those kind of go in and out of popularity. I don't love, controversial, I don't like multi-level marketing supplements. Yeah. And look, there are some great multi-level marketing quality supplements. I'm not going to name any, but they're very, very expensive for the average person to buy because it's a bit of a pyramid thing. And so you're paying extra for all the people that are dipping in. Whereas whether you're buying a supplement at the chemist, the health food store, or we do sell supplements, like that is part of an income. But as I say to my students, supplement sales for me are like icing on a cupcake. It's not my income. It's like that little added bit. Yeah, I just struggle with those in general. There are some good ones, but yeah.
Cool. Okay, so for the good ones, we've got mag, number one.
Yeah, what do I give the most of? I give a lot of mag. Love some of the mineral. Often we need extra B vitamin help. Women often need some extra Bs and some zinc. Zinc is something I give a lot of. Zinc is involved in like 2,000 different things in the body. I don't mind a good vitamin C for the immune system. Oh my gosh, there's so many great supplements. It's so hard. It depends. Do you need energy? Am I going for CoQ10?
That's cool because I think that people often question the efficacy of a certain supplement. And from what I'm getting from this is that supplements on a whole are neither good nor bad, neither helpful or non-helpful. What people should really be looking at is what do I need support with, and then really hone in and go from there.
And let me also say, in a wonderful world, if you were eating an awesome diet, I will also say organic, because we do know organic food, you're not dealing with all the pesticides. And I don't buy organic 100% of the time either, but you're not dealing with pesticides, which are using up nutrients as well. So in a great world, do we need supplements? No, but nobody lives in that beautiful world. And then also if you have to remove certain things from your diet, like if you're dairy sensitive, we need to look at certain nutrients that come from there. Or if people are going plant-based diets can be incredibly healthy, but they can end up deficient in a lot of things that we need, like essential fatty acids and zinc and B12. And, it's just fine balance how our body operates. And then we all have different genetic anomalies, what we call SNPs, where we don't process some things well. Certain B vitamins don't make it down the pathway that they should. And so sometimes we're giving nutrients to help support pathways actually work better. But yeah, I'm not a you have to be on tons of supplements person. Do I have hundreds of supplements that I've tried sitting in my cupboards? Probably, but on average, I probably take 4 things a day. Maybe, more on some days, less on others. Some days I don't think I've taken a supplement all week this week, just because I can't be bothered.
Awesome. That's really good to know. I think what struck me there as well was that you mentioned that your supplements can help with the mental health side of things as well. And I think that a lot of people only look to supplements in terms of that kind of physical, I'm feeling a bit sick, I'm going to get some vitamin C or, that kind of stuff. Like, what can you take to support your mental health? That's cool.
Yeah, there's a lot actually. And it also depends on what's going on in your diet and what are you deficient in. If people are not eating a lot of meat or animal product, they're going to be low in B12, which is super important for the nervous system and how our nerves actually conduct themselves. Like fish oils or omega-3 oils are much harder to get in a plant-based diet. And again, you need those incredible oils. They're anti-inflammatory, all kinds of calming things in the body, great for the nervous system. Zinc is a huge one. People don't think about it, but great in mental health, great for so many things. Oh my gosh, there's so many different things. And that's another thing. There's herbs naturopathically that help the body create good amounts of there's things that we can take nutritionally or herbally to help the body, give them the precursors to create dopamine or serotonin and things that we're looking for calming our brain or making us feel good. Yeah. It's almost like if you think of dopamine or serotonin as the baked cake, a lot of the nutrients that we're giving because they're great ingredients in helping bake a better cake. That's probably the best way. I've never used that as an analogy. I probably shouldn't use a cake analogy. Yeah, so they're not going to fix something really bad. Like they're not the be all to end all by any means. You need to make the diet and lifestyle changes. I think they're a great buffer while people make their changes, and they can make us feel a lot better very quickly.
You should use it again.
Yeah, like B6, magnesium, and zinc are your magic 3 for PMS. Bloating, the moods, the feeling down. There's other things to give as well, but oh my gosh, if I can give everybody with PMS a little time. Yeah. The gem is if you don't have enough money to go see a naturopath right now, go into a health food store, because a lot of naturopaths actually work in retail while they're building up their clinical practice. And you can actually get access to really educated people. So go in and ask. Don't just try to do it by yourself. Don't be running out and just buying magnesium, B6, and zinc. Go talk to somebody. Pharmacies, people know a lot of naturopaths work in pharmacies. And also for people that all live in major cities, the university I teach at called Torrens, we have a student clinic and this is a great way to experience naturopathy or nutrition. We have a student clinic that's open 6 days a week, and they're in Melbourne, Brisbane, Sydney, Perth. There's another college called Endeavour as well. And for like $20, you can go see a final year naturopath. You actually have like 2 people sitting in the room. It's not just the naturopath. There's another one and a supervisor who's been working forever, all looking at your case. And it's a very inexpensive way to see a naturopath if you need to.
Yeah, that's an excellent gem. I wholly 100% agree with that, because sometimes a lot of people can feel priced out of the private sector of holistic health, for sure.
Oh, yeah. I don't come cheap, with my decades of work, but people can access me through student clinic on the days I'm there, right? It's not me taking the case, and you get to sit through very nervous students that might have only taken 2 cases, but they're there with so much info and they want to do it. And I actually think it's an incredible way to see a naturopath for the first time.
That's cool. Yeah, I would agree. That's awesome. Okay, I have one last question for you. Yeah, so we ask this question for everyone who comes into the podcast. Yeah, and you can answer this in any way. It doesn't have to be naturopathy or nutrition related. So it can be just your view. But if you could change one thing about the fitness industry, the way that it currently runs, what would you change right now?
Oh, she told me this before the podcast. What would I change?
Everyone says they'll come back with like 5 different answers, but I want your first one.
What would I change about the fitness industry? I would change, how am I going to word this carefully? I would change people's perception. Perception's not the right, I don't love how if somebody is social media famous, we think they're the best. There's some people that are social media famous that are absolutely the best. And then there's others that are just great spin people, and good on them. I'm not going to have a go at them, but I would change the fact that my magic wand of how I would like it to be better. There are some amazing PTs and fitness, because I've dealt with the fitness industry. You know, my first job as a naturopath was inside of a gym, which is how I got so involved in the fitness industry before I became a sports nutritionist. I would change the hype of social media to go away. I don't know. Do I really want that? I just think what I don't like is watching influencers. Maybe this isn't even the fitness industry. You know what I don't like is I don't like watching tiny little...
I would put that in there. Yeah, you're good.
You know, and you all got to start somewhere. So I don't want to be mean to anyone. I don't like having these tiny body type people who have probably never had weight loss problems be like, oh yeah, after my baby, I didn't have a 6-pack and now look at me. And
be mean. It's fine. We're not going to hate you, Kira. It's really hard to find that balance. I'm with you.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Like, but that doesn't mean that person doesn't have great info. But I don't know, maybe I'm showing my age here, but I just struggle with watching some people, really push that. But again, those people might actually know a lot. But yeah, sometimes I'm like, dude, you're 23, you've never been overweight and you're doing this whole weight loss thing. And but now I'm judging without knowing them. So yeah.
I understand what you mean, but that's the whole point and purpose, I suppose, of Instagram is you're taking people for face value. And there's no, we come from self-regulated industries, but there's still a semblance of regulation there, right? There's still a qualification that you need to go get. There's still a visible and tangible way that you can work yourself towards becoming more experienced and better at your craft. Whereas the pathway to become better at Instagram is to be better at Instagram, not necessarily your craft.
Yeah. And I just wish there was a better way to wade through that. Yeah, like I said, I'm not actually having any go at any specific person or thing I can't even think of. But sometimes I'm like, oh, these genius people are invisible. And I wish there was a way that reputation and hard work and knowledge was
what was valued.
Yeah, because we judge on such a different platform these days. And it's not wrong, but I think a lot of people get misled. And it just makes me sad that it's hard to find the reality. We have so much of this elusive spin of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. And I think part of this podcast that I really love and that I hope the listener gets out of this is that I look for the educators, the people who, I don't know how big your social media following is, to be fair, but, we're not in a couple of 100,000 and you're looking at decades of experience. Having an Instagram, the way that Instagram is run, is almost a full-time job.
Oh my God, look, I can say it. I'm very close to 10,000, but I'm under. And I didn't really start focusing on it until it all became a lot harder to get, I was on it, but not an early adopter of knowing what I was doing. I employ somebody else to help me with it because as a practitioner, I don't have that time and I'm not a pretty marketer or whatever. I pay other people to take my info and try to turn it into the right thing, but I still find it incredibly stressful, and that's okay. It's incredible advertising. I can't say I haven't benefited from it. I've totally benefited from it, but yeah, it's tiring trying to figure out what to do and not do. But yeah, I'm not even, what else would I change about the fitness industry?
If you ever do think of something else, record yourself on social media and then be like, hey.
Yeah. And I like socials. I'm on socials every day checking everybody else's stuff. I think it's a great platform for learning, but we just don't know the quality of what we're learning.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. Just as a bit of a side note for anybody, I'm going down a hypermobile rabbit hole right now. This is where my head's at. Yeah, Kira's Ehlers-Danlos, heads, hypermobility spectrum. Like, I'm going down the whole path because there's nothing clinical that I can find that gives me any good benefit. So the only people that I can find are on Instagram. They're doctors, but that's the only way I can find them. So I see where you're challenged with the whole Instagram thing because it's so useful in that respect, because I never would have found these people otherwise in this information. But knowing if they're credible, I always go and check. What's your website? Like, who are you? Are you a doctor?
Yeah, I think social media is phenomenal. I'm just saying what I would change is I wish we just had a better way of knowing the quality of what oh my God, we get access to Stanford professors and like Twitter. I very rarely do anything on Twitter, but I follow every sports scientist in the world. And literally, I wait for them to post all the latest research. I know who to follow due to postgrad studies. And then I'm like, oh, look what they put. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's kind of like, it's been a game changer. And also I have clients around the world, right? I treated somebody in Romania the other day. I was like, ooh, yeah, this is so cool. But yeah.
That's amazing. Maybe the answer to that question is that we need to flip who we follow. Like, it's not about not following, or it's about like having more transparency about that education, the qualification, the experience, so that people can then really easily find who they need.
So Vanessa, what would you change about the fitness industry? What is your thing? Because if it's your question, you got a thing.
I have so many things, and I think my question changes nearly every time because I hear my thing today. My thing today is, it's very similar. I think that I'm self-regulated and self-motivated to find my own education, right? I'll go down the rabbit hole and I'll spend the next 6 hours searching for this thing on hypermobility because I've got a client or clients who need that specific information. So I'm going to go and find it.
So I know a naturopath that specializes in that, just in case you ever want her name.
Oh, fair, I'm getting that. But however, I will keep up with the latest stuff, but it's not mandated for us. And it'd be the same in your industry. And I think that the whole industry would benefit so much with more of a collective sharing and a little bit more regulation. I think less regulation is great because it means that we can stay open and there's pros and cons, right? But at the moment, especially in fitness, it's definitely less in yours. I mean, yours is degree qualified. The fitness industry qualifications as a bare minimum are a bare minimum. And I don't think that we're qualified to work with the scope of issues that present themselves just in daily people and just gen pop. And
oh, yeah. Oh, it's amazing what shows up. It's amazing what shows up for personal. It's amazing what shows up as sometimes I get scared. People show up. I'm like, why are you seeing me? Like, let's get you back to that specialist. Let's get, we gatekeep as well. But yeah, especially people showing up wanting to get fit who have some serious chronic stuff. That's scary.
Yeah. So that's my one for today, everyone. Thanks for the question, Kira.
Yeah. No, it's good. I mean, you're required to do continuing education points, but you can choose what it's in, right? You can go do a business course, or I could do an Instagram course for that. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I'm having a go, but I love social media. But yeah, I don't love the facade at the same time. But again, incredible advertising.
That's why you have my heart, Kira.
No, it's so good to see you. Oh, and I love those questions. They were good questions. Of course, I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night with another answer for you.
Well, text it to me. I'll put it on my socials. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know that our listener has had a lot of information come through, so I really appreciate your time and I appreciate you. So thank you again.
Oh, good. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate you too. Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time on PDM.
Thank you for being a part of our podcast community. If you haven't already, we would be honored if you would consider subscribing and following us on your favorite platform. That way, you'll never miss an episode and you'll be the first to know when new episodes are released. We truly appreciate your support and we can't wait to continue to grow and connect with you through our podcast.